need a yarn, a scissors, crochet needle, stitch markers, and a hook. This time we are using a 5.5mm hook for the skirt. To start, create a knot. We are going to make chains that are up to our hip measurement. So measure your hip before you start this project. If it's a size medium, size small, your hip measurement should tally the number of chains that you do. I'm done with my chains, and now I'm going to measure. My hip is 37 inches. So as you are making your chains, make sure you keep measuring your hip size. So my hip size is 37. I'm going to check to see if it's up to 37. In all, I made 108 chains. So when you're making your chains, make sure you make it multiple of 4. Yes, sorry I couldn't tell you earlier, but you're supposed to make it multiple of 4. We are going to make a little calculation. So the number of my chains are 108, as I said earlier. So for my sides, I want to start with 18 chains for the sides, and we are going to calculate 18 times 2 because it will be on both sides, making it 36. So 108 minus the 36 is 72. Then you divide it by 4, making 18. I'm going to do this one more time. We are making 18 chains. We are starting 18 chains for the sides. Since we have 2 sides, we are going to multiply by 2. So we are going to get 36. And 108 minus the size that we'll be leaving will give us a 72. 72 minus divided by 4 will give us 18, because we are going to divide our chain into 4. You get me? So to start, we are going to count our 18 chains, the one that we divided by 4. So you are going to count 18. So with this side, you can get a 20, you can get 22, you can get 24, depending on the number of chains you made. So after you are done with that, then you count your 18 chains. So this chain is for the side. So the 18 chain we just did it for the side. After you are done, you go to the other side and repeat the same thing. After your division, the number you got, that's the number you'll be counting from the bottom. So I got 18, so I'll be counting 18. So after I'm done counting that specific number, I'll count my 18 stitches, sorry. That one is for the side. So the second 18 that you count is for the side. If you are doing it for size medium, you can use the same numbers that I'm using. But if you are using it for large, I'm sure the numbers will vary. So these are my front and my back. Each has 38 stitches. So that is why we divided the 72 by 4. So when you are done, you can recount to see that you have the number of chains at each side. So each side must have 18 and the other side must have 38 stitches, sorry, depending on how many stitches you made at first. So to join your work, make sure you turn your work like so. They should all face this way. Take your time when you're doing this. So do this all the way to the end. When you get to the end, you turn your work like so. So we are going to slip stitch into that very chain space. Next, you make a half double crochet into the same chain space, just like so. Then you chain one. You skip one stitch after you chain one. Then you go to the next stitch and put a half double crochet into that chain space. After you chain one, next we are going to make the puff stitch. You skip one stitch, yarn over, insert your hook, pull through your yarn over again, insert your hook and pull through your yarn. So you are going to have 5 stitches on your hook, then you pull through all of them, then you chain one. You skip one stitch, yarn over, insert your hook, pull through your yarn over, insert your hook, pull through your yarn. You have 5 stitches on your hook, then you pull through all of them after you chain one. Continue this to where your stitch marker is. I'll meet you there. When you are done with your last stitch, we are going to make 18 chains. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So we are going to make a puff stitch right at where our stitch marker is. Insert your hook like so, pull through your yarn over, insert your hook again, pull through and pull through all of your chains. Take your time when doing this. That part is very tricky. So when you're done, then you make one chain. This is how your work is supposed to look like. So you continue with your work as usual. You skip one chain, insert your hook, pull through, insert your hook again, pull through and pull through all 5 stitches. Then you chain one. Skip one, insert your hook, pull through, yarn over, insert your hook, pull through and pull through all the loops. Then chain one. So do this all the way to where the stitch marker is. I'll meet you there. I am on my last stitch. So I'm doing my last puff stitch before I start my 18 chains for my other side. So far, this is how my work is looking. We are going to make 18 chains. So after our 18 chains, we are going to make our next puff stitch in that very chain space. Insert your hook, pull through your yarn. Insert your hook again, pull through, and pull through all the loops. Then you make one chain. So after this, you are going to continue with your puff stitch on the other side. I'll meet you at the end. So I'm coming to do my last puff stitch, sorry, my last but one puff stitch on this very row. Chain one. So for our last puff stitch, we are going to put it into that very space. Don't worry, I know right now it will look a little fuzzy, but as time goes on, as we continue, it will just disappear. So after this, you're going to chain one. After you're done with this, make sure you put a stitch marker right at the very last stitch. So for this row, we are going to make our puff stitches in the spaces available, like so. Then you chain one, you go to the next space, you make a puff stitch, chain one. So this will be the pattern for this row. Continue with this pattern till you get to where you are supposed to make the chains. I'll meet you there. I'm done with my first part. So for this chain, we are going to make 16 chains. So as we are going, we are going to be decreasing the number of chains we'll be doing. For this second row, we are going to make 16 chains. For the third row, we are going to make 14 chains until we get to the last two chains. When you are done with your 14 chains, we are going to make a puff stitch. Now, before you do your puff stitch, we are going to count our stitches right from there. We are going to count 16 stitches. So that is my 16th stitch. So we are not going to make our puff stitch in that very 16th stitch. We are going to make our puff stitch in the next stitch. So we are basically doing the puff stitch into the 17th chain space. So this is how it's looking right now. As you can see, our chains are reducing. So we are going to make puff stitches until we get to where we are supposed to make our chains. I'll meet you there. I'm on my last but one puff stitch. So this is the last but one. After you're done with this, you chain one. You skip one stitch like so. Then you put your puff stitch into the next chain space available. Yarn over and pull through all the loops, then chain one. After you're done, then you make your next 16 chains. So we are going to make 16 chains. for outside. After your chains, as usual, you are going to count your stitches and you are going to make your post stitch in the 17th stitch. Make sure you don't forget this. I didn't count it because I'm used to it, but if you're a beginner, please don't forget to count it like so. Make sure once you are done counting, we are counting 16, but you are going to make your puff stitch into the 17th chain space. Take your time when you are doing your puff stitch here. Then you chain 1. Our next puff stitch will be in the next space available. So when you're done with your puff stitch, you chain 1, you go into the next space available until you get to the end. I'll meet you there. I'm almost done with my row. So this is my last puff stitch. When you are done, you make the next puff stitch into the next chain space. So always don't forget to put your stitch marker at the right place. So that very place will count as my last stitch. Then you chain 1. So this will be our pattern. On the next row, we are making 14 chains for the side. So just like how I taught you, you are going to make your puff stitch when you get right here. Just right here, you are going to skip the stitch and you are going to do your puff stitch into the next stitch. When you are done, then you chain 14 chains and you count 14 chains on this very chain and you do your puff stitch in the 15th chain. When you are done, then you continue your puff stitches. You come here, you do the same thing here. So after this row, you are going to make 12 chains. The next chains you make will be 10, 8, 6, 4 until you get to 2 chains. So I'll meet you at the last 2 chains. So I've made my 14, my 12, 10, 8, 6 and 4 chains. At the part where I'll just be doing my 2 chains. So as usual, I'm going to skip one and make my puff stitch right there. Then you chain 1. Then you're going to chain 2 like so and make your puff stitch in the 3rd chain space. Then you chain 1. So this is how your work should be looking after the last 2 chain spaces. As usual, continue your puff stitch to the end. So this is how my work is looking. I wasn't able to do the last row with you. So with the last row, as in the row after the second stitches, what you're going to do is just continue doing puff stitches in every hole. So as you can see, after your last row of 2, there was a little space. So you are just going to do a puff stitch. There will be no chains. we are going to do a puff stitch in that very space. So that will be the pattern for the skirt. Immediately after you're done with your chains, you'll just be doing puff stitches all around until you get to the length that you want. So for now, this is how my work is looking. This is how your work should be looking. If you put it down this way, you are going to see the sides like so. All you need to do now is just do puff stitches all around until you get to the length that you want. So I want to make it up to 15 inches. So I'm going to do puff stitches all around until I get to the 15th inch. As you're doing it, you can be measuring it as well. You can do longer or shorter depending on the length that you want. My skirt is now 15 inches. I'm on my last row. I want to show you how you are going to end your stitch. So you are going to make your puff stitches in each space like so. Then you chain one, make your puff stitch in the second space, pull through all the loops. So you are going to remove your stitch marker. Then this time you just make a slip stitch on that very space above. After you chain one, pull your yarn and cut the excess yarn. After you are done cutting the excess yarn, make sure you tighten your work. You can tie it as many times as you want, but make sure it's really tight. So you take your crochet needle and insert your yarn inside like so. We are come to hide our yarn. So to hide the yarn, you are going to put your crochet needle at this exact spot. Then you do it like so. Just watch it closely and do the same thing. This will help your skirt to look even. If you are able to hide it well, and pull it as you are working around it, okay? Make sure your skirt is even. So when you get to the point that you want, then you put one yarn to another space, then you tie them both together. But if you are just using one yarn for your work, you just tie it like that. After, then you cut the excess from it. So this is how my skirt is looking. This is my length. Yeah, I hope you can see the length exactly. So that will be the back and this will be my front. Okay, and this is how my sides are looking. Next, we are going to make a drawstring for the skirt. So we are going to tie a knot like so and make up to 100 chains. You can choose to do more chains depending on how long you want your drawstring. So we are going to make 100 chains. So keep going, I'll meet you at the end. I'm on my last stitch. Make sure you tighten your last stitch very well, then you pull it. So after you're done pulling, then you cut your excess yarn. Make sure you tighten it really well. After you cut your excess yarn, then you tie it up. So we are going to do the same for the other side. You tighten it up very well. So when you are done, then you cut your excess yarn. So this is how you are going to put in your drawstring at the back. You first put it at the back like so. Then you turn it to the side. Then this very hole, this very space up here, you are going to put it in like so. You are going to do the same thing at the other side. So after you're done with this side, you go to the next side and you do the same thing. So with this one, you put the other side of your drawstring in here like so. So we are going to tie up our knot at the other side. And voila, you are done with your puff skirt. Thank you for watching this video. If you are new here, don't forget to subscribe and kindly like and share to your fellow crochet enthusiasts. I'll see you in the next video.